It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview Janet Sauter. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to work in sports?
Yeah, so I started college and I didn't really know what to do. I was going to junior college playing volleyball, but me and my dad were huge, or still are huge fans of the Patriots. It's something we always bonded over. And I remember we were watching a game and he looked at me and he's like, "You should go into journalism. You're really into sports. That'd be great." And I was like, "Wow, that would be amazing." And so I went to ASU my junior year and I got my first internship in media relations, which really got me into professional working in sports.
Can you talk about, of course, your time at ASU?
Yeah, it was I applied to this internship because I knew I needed experience. I needed to just start learning as much as I can because I transferred as a junior. So I didn't know what media relations was. I was just going into it and I ended up loving it. The first sport of the season's football and volleyball. So with football, we didn't really do a lot of big things with that. That was mainly helping in the press box or transcribing um, the post-game conferences. That was mainly what we did for that. But then when baseball and tennis and stuff rolled around, I was getting more responsibility, writing game recaps, helping with social media posts on that. So it was really great. It really introduced me into what goes on behind the scenes and I loved it.
Can you talk about, of course, the transition from being a college and transitioning into the professional world?
With my internships or
Yes, with your
okay.
internship.
Yeah, so with ASU, there was a bunch of different student assistants, so there was not as much responsibility put on us. I mean, we each had our own roles, but it wasn't as much as when I went to the Celtics, I was the only intern, so I was handling pretty much everything for the department, which was great. I loved the responsibility, and it taught me a lot.
Can you speak about what your time was like with the Boston Celtics as the media relations?
Yeah, so I handled all of credentialing on game days. And then I would handle passing them out at the arena and I would set up the media area, the auxiliary seating and the media room on game days. And then I would also help with transcribing and passing out stats during the game. And then when it wasn't game days, I would go into the office and work on different reports for viewership and readership of different events. I would help with events. I also worked on a media guide for the CLTX gaming team, which was really cool. I've never done that before, along with writing press releases and media advisories. Um, I'm trying to think. I would go to practice and handle the media there, kind of just getting them to the right spot for practice. And I think that's mainly my big things that I did during the season.
Can you talk about, of course, whenever you were with the Boston Celtics working in media, did you conduct interviews with players and stuff, like Kamal Walker?
No, so I just recorded the interviews of reporters asking, and then I would transcribe all the quotes for the Celtics to print out and hand to media to use.
Can you talk about, of course, your time with the Arizona Coyotes?
Yeah, so I ventured in once I came back from Boston. I live in Arizona. I got on with the Coyotes in their grassroots marketing department, which was kind of different for me. I only had media relations, PR experience, but it was great because I got to learn kind of different events into growing the hockey area, the hockey scene in Arizona. So we did a lot of events going to elementary schools and giving equipment to them and like teaching them how to play hockey, to hosting like different events before games or in the game, like kind of just trying to grow hockey here. So it was really cool. I learned a lot about like event planning and just like the different aspects of marketing that I didn't know beforehand.
Can you talk about, of course, some of the difference and similarities with working in professional basketball versus, of course, hockey?
Um, so hold on, I'm sorry, I just have to think about that because it was like two different like departments, but um I feel like with the Celtics, I kind of like dealt with a lot of different departments just because like say one department needed like credentials for someone that they were bringing in, like they would come to me and I would be able to like work with different departments. And with the Coyotes, it was kind of like strictly just like ours because we were just the only ones like working on like the different events and doing that. So that was kind of one difference that I saw.
What are some of the roles that you were doing in marketing?
Um, I was like working with kids a lot. That was a big thing, like teaching them. Like they have this really great program called the Little Howlers, which they give the kids 6 weeks on ice lessons and all the gear for I think $150. So that was a big thing for us. We did a lot of like pre-game, like different like setups. We had like bounce houses, street hockey. We did like all the like pregame stuff. So that was kind of like the different things that we did for that.
What is the day in the life as of course, public relations?
So I kind of had like two different type days. When it was game day, it was a little longer. So I would get into the office usually around like 9 or 10 in the morning, roughly for like a later start. That was mainly most of our games. And I would work on all the credentials for that game. And then I would do the media seating charts. And then I would head over to the arena and get everything all set up there. And then I would come back, and by that time it was probably like maybe like 3 or 4 hours before tip off, and I would eat in the office and then work on like anything I had due, if I had to like work on a report or something like that. And then 3 hours before tip off I would head back to the arena and get my desk all ready with all the credentials, because sometimes there were like a lot depending on who was coming to town. And so then for 3 hours prior to tip off, I would just be down there like handing out credentials as journalists come. And then once tip off happens, I would go up to the media room where I would wait until the end of the quarter to pass out stats. And then after the game, transcribe everything and then finally head home. So those were like pretty long nights. I was usually getting home around like midnight 1 in the morning. But then on non-game days, if we had practice, I would head to the Auerbach Center first, and then I would like handle the media there. And once everyone's all in and practice starts, I would usually head back to the office and work on any reports or like anything that needs to be done for the next game coming up. I would also handle clips. So I would send out weekly clippings of stories written to all the employees of the organization. So I would get those done every week. And yeah, so those were kind of like my two different days.
That's a very exciting job. Can you talk about, of course, what the roles were for and the typical day was for as a marketing consultant, coordinator?
Yeah, so we would usually if it was game days, we would usually get to the arena probably like 5 or 6 hours before tip off and get everything all set up, ready to go. Because when they had the like block parties, we had to be up and ready, I think like 2 or 3 hours before the game started, just because fans like start to roll in. And then we'd wait until halftime and tear everything down, and then either you can stay in the game or you can head home depending on what you wanted to do. And then non-game days, like if we were handling outside events, we would go to the arena and pack up everything we need in the van or the truck, depending on how much stuff we had to bring, and then head to where the event was and get everything set up for the duration of the event, and then we'd pack everything up and head home.
During your time with the Boston Celtics, as you were the public relations, can you talk about, of course, like let's say if I, Brandon Sports Talk, wanted to do an interview with a player or even somebody on the coaching staff, what would the requirements have to be?
So that would be geared towards my boss. I think you guys would email my boss, and then if you guys needed like credentials or anything on my end, then he would like usually forward me like an email letting me know what I need to get ready for the journalist coming in. But my boss or supervisors or other people in the team would usually handle like setting up the interviews and everything.
What was some of your most exciting times working with both the Boston Celtics and the Arizona team?
So I'm a huge Patriots fan, and I was actually in Boston after the Patriots won the Super Bowl, and the next game, the Patriots came for a game. And I had to ride up in the elevator with some of the Patriots players. And then during halftime, I was passing out stats, and like you walk around the court for that. And so when I was like coming back, Robert Kraft like literally like stopped right in front of me to take a picture. And it was like so cool because it's like I see all these people growing up, and then I come here and then it's like I'm just seeing them as like normal human beings as like they are. So it's like really cool to see that.
What is something that you learn now that you didn't know beforehand starting and working in sports?
I honestly didn't know the like sheer amount of work that goes into a game, like anything team related events that happen. I mean, growing up, like you watch the game, but you don't really know like all the work that goes into it. Everyone has to like do their job, and it's like crazy the amount of work that everyone puts in to make sure that the games and everything goes smoothly.
What advice would you give upcoming future people looking to work into professional sports?
I would say don't give up. I mean, I don't know how many interviews and job applications I've sent in. Like, it's crazy, especially today, like with COVID and sports just like being different than usual. Like, you just got to keep trying and keep pushing. Everything like happens for a reason. Timing always like happens when it's supposed to. And I remind myself of that. And so you just got to keep pushing and keep sending out applications, and eventually it'll work out.
What are some of your future plans while working in sports?
So currently I am working for a PR firm. I was lucky enough to get a job during this pandemic. And so I'm back to like, it's really great. I'm really thankful. Not only the fact do I get to work in PR, I'm learning different aspects that I haven't in sports, but I am hoping one day that I'll be able to return to the sports scene and be like a communications coordinator and like, or something with the team. I mean, it's just like amazing. It's not even like, it doesn't even feel like work when you go into the office every day. It's so great. But I mean, right now I'm so glad I'm in the role I am because I'm learning so much. But eventually down the road, I'm hoping to get back into sports.
That's wonderful. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
They can find me on Instagram at Janet Sauter, JanetSauter, and Twitter at Janet_Sauter.
Thank you again, Janet Sauter, for your interview, and best of luck in your future wherever it might hold you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Janet, for your interview, and best of luck.
Bye.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.